I think those of us who have been followers of Christ for some time, we all agree on one thing, and that is that God is sovereign, that God is over everything and everyone in the world. And if you're not a Christian, you may not buy into that, and that's perfectly fine. If you're new to Christianity and this whole deal, you may not quite buy into that. But for those of us who have been around for a while, we kind of get that. But what about the authority that's here on this earth? How are we to respond and that sort of stuff? Because we've all had those moments when we didn't like being bossed around, where we would think at least in our mind something like, hey, just because you're my boss, what gives you the right to tell me what to do? Which really doesn't make much sense from a semantic standpoint. But has that ever happened to you? Is there a rule? Would you be willing to share a rule or a something that you've not agreed with or found it hard to submit to that you'd share with me right now? What's a rule that you found hard to submit to? Maybe at work. Or anywhere. Paying taxes. Absolutely. The speed limit. That's the one. The first service was like speed limit and can't wear jeans to work. Second service was like all this really heavy stuff. It's like, whoa. Maybe the third service will lighten up a little bit. So you get anybody else would share one? What's that? What's about Disneyland? You can't bring food into Disneyland. You have to pay the $17 per burger that's there. Now that is something that's hard to submit to because you do have big purses that you can kind of come in and just got a lot of business to take care of while I'm here. Don't look at the checkered blanket that's in there. That's not a picnic at all. Maybe it's possible that, as we learned a couple of weeks ago, that there is an unseen world that is affecting the seen, visible world that we know. And the enemy can be behind this whole thing with authority. I happen to like authority when I'm in authority. I like that my title is senior pastor. I think that's cool, so authority is not a problem. I like that my wife was brought up in a home where she was taught about roles of a man and a woman, of a husband and a wife, and of children. And I love that the children are in authority to me, so I don't really have a problem with authority too much in those aspects. But haven't you heard kids, particularly teenagers, say something like, who are you to tell me what to do? I'm 15 years old. I'm 17 years old. I know what's going on now. You can't boss me around like that. Or an 18-year-old who still is dependent on her family or his family for food, shelter, insurance, and basically everything else, probably a car, and those sorts of things. And they'll come up and say, I'm 18 years old. You won't tell me what to do. And I'll make my own decisions. And if you don't like it, I'll move in with Joey or I'll move in with Cindy. And my life will be so much better because I won't have you telling me what to do. And then I'll be free. The F word. Freedom. Maybe you work for somebody else and you think, you know what, if I just start my own business, I won't have to report to this person and they're dumber than I am anyway, and so I could start my own business, do my own thing, not have to report to somebody, make more money, and everything will be better. And I'll be free. Which anybody that started their own business knows that owning your own business is anything but freedom. And this is where I hope that you'll follow along in your notes. We buy into the twist that rebellion equals freedom. But we know better than to say we're rebels, right? We don't buy into that. We're more sophisticated than to be rebels because we've seen people that are in rebellion. We've seen the decisions that they've made. Some of those people are in prison now because of the decisions they've made. So we're way more sophisticated than just rebelling. If we disagree with a rule, we'll just ignore it. If we disagree with a rule, we'll just disregard it. Because we want to weigh out the consequences of the disagreeing with that rule and what may happen or may not happen, and then we'll decide whether I obey the rule or not depends on what I think about the rule and the consequences that come from not obeying that rule. My interpretation is what matters. I'll decide. Like the speed limit. I heard that one. I think that would probably affect anybody that drives at least a little. And you're driving down a road, and the speed limit says it's 40 miles an hour, and you're thinking, are you kidding me? It's out here in the woods, or not out in the openness, and it's a straight line. There's no schools around anywhere. It should be at least 45 here. And the second service said 60. So whatever. We want to stretch. We don't want to be rebels. We're just going to choose to not go 40. Or taxes. And you're filling out your taxes and you know how much taxes you pay. And you're saying, you know what, that should be a deduction. That is a legitimate deduction. I did that for my business and I should be able to write that off, or I should be able to take that on my Schedule C or whatever. And so I'm going to do it anyway. Or curfew, and teenagers or young people have a curfew and it's at midnight, but they're spending the night at Joey's house or at whoever's house, and so they're going to stay out till 1 because their parents are way cooler than my parents, and so I'm just following the rules of the house, and you know that you have to be home at midnight, but you don't. So you just choose to ignore it. You choose to disregard it. I'll do what's right in my eyes. After all, the rule is stupid. The rule is wrong. Everybody knows it.